A dire warning from a German engineer at a power company over in Europe says the European power grid is on the verge of collapse. And he shares just how long it might take to get it back up. And friends, it is not just in Germany. We have a report here from Texas that the grid is already under strain there. And of course, with what's going on down in Mexico, we are very sensitive to that. Also, a celebrity couple is giving us an update. A bunch of you are going to recognize them, so glad to have them here. Got a whole lot to cover. Let's jump right into it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade. And just a pro tip out there for you guys. If you're sending an update, make sure you use the word update. But we don't track prices on this channel since it's so different from state to state, unless you give us some sort of comparison, if you say how much it went up and that type of thing. But if you want more price tracking, you might want to check out Adventures with Dano. They do a fantastic job at tracking prices over there. So if you're concerned about those things, make sure you check out their channel. And they are not our celebrity guests. Before we dive in, we do want to thank our sponsor, Genesis Gold Group. If you have retirement accounts that you want to get into something stable, get it out of the stock market, which might be a good time to do that, you might want to talk to Jonathan and his team. There'll be a link at the end of the video that you can just fill out the form and they'll call you. They'll send you an information packet, answer your questions, and then there is no commitment whatsoever on there. If you do call them directly, just make sure you mention this channel so they waive any setup fees. Daniel in Germany, he says this. He's an engineer working for a power company. Power situation in Germany. Basically, the power supply at least appears to be stable. Okay, I mean, it does appear to be stable, at least from the outside, right? But behind the scenes, if you're monitoring the customers' complaints about regional loss of power supply, you see that there are more and more complaints, especially in the western and southern parts of Germany. The more annoying thing, which you don't see as a customer, is the frequency within the power grid. It sometimes suddenly goes too low. So this is a problem, right? If the frequency goes too low, it ends up triggering a blackout, right? Normally, our grid here operates at 230 volts AC and a frequency of nominal 50 hertz. Slight deviations are perfectly normal, but they need to stay within a very small range. If the frequency were to go down to 49.8 hertz in the wide area transmission grid, this would imply huge area to be disconnected from the power supply. So 49.8. This would happen automatic. On 4/28, April 28th, we had a Europe-wide decrease of the frequency in the transmission grid down to 49.825. So not quite 49.8, but really close. Within less than 30 seconds, that would have disconnected, if it had gone just a little bit lower, would have disconnected large portions of the European grid. But nobody talked about that, right? But we're hearing about it from behind the scenes from an engineer at a power company there. So there wouldn't be even reasonable reaction table for the grid operators to prevent big things to happen. So basically it shouldn't happen, and so because of that, they don't have plans for this kind of thing. They're not. This actually means that we were very, very near to a Europe-wide collapse of the electrical power grid. Of course, nobody talks about things like that, but it appears just to be a matter of time when we see that happen. Friends, we talk about how things could go sideways real fast. Within 30 seconds, the entire European power grid almost collapsed. You're hearing it straight from the horse's mouth, right? And from an engineer's point of view, I would not wonder if that has happened already this year before. If the entire grid collapses, power supply is not and power supply is not restorable within a few hours. In that scenario, it will need quite some days to restore power supply. But nobody of the average people here appears to understand about all of that. and they do not want to hear warnings. Also, they do not want to do some prepping for such kind of situation. Sorry for the roughness there. I was trying to smooth it out a little bit, but our friend types fantastic English, but it's still a little German. So hopefully you guys hear that warning. Now, if Europe collapses, that's going to cause a lot of problems for the United States. It's going to cause a lot of problems for everyone else. But why a couple hours? Well, a lot of their power plants would have to be shut down, right? You can't have a power plant pumping out electricity where there's no electricity to go. Like, there's nowhere for it to go. They basically have to short it out of the system, and it's doesn't work, right? So they need to get those power plants shut down relatively quickly. And so after a couple hours, then it's hard to get them spun back up, right? It's hard to add them back onto a power grid and sync them all up with the frequencies and everything like that. So what they have to do is they have to start with one little small power plant with load on it, and then they start adding components onto it. They add more capacity, more generation capacity, then they add more, and they add more houses and everything like that, and they start building. The bigger it is, the more stable it is. So the problem is when you have a really small network that you're trying to build onto, if you mess something up, it collapses again and you have to restart. Because there are safety mechanisms in all these things, so it won't let you do bad stuff, so it will disconnect things, and when it starts disconnecting things, that's when you have all sorts of issues with the power plants and everything. All right, this is let's move over to Texas, because hopefully that's not happening here as well. The struggle budget says, Texas power grid. It was 90 and humid today in the greater Houston area and hazy skies. First thing this morning, I received an email from my electricity provider saying it was a weather watch day due to higher temperatures, increased electrical demand, and potential for lower reserves. They wanted us to reduce our usage between 2 and 6 p.m. When your power companies, who you pay, is asking you for handouts like, please don't use power when you want to, are you paying for this service? I mean, there's plenty of people that don't pay for the service, and that's a whole nother thing. I used to work for a company where we were basically the inbound call center. So when somebody got a notice stuck on their door that we're going to shut off your power, there's a phone number on there, and they called me. So I answered the call, and people were usually pretty upset. Why did I get this notice? Blah, blah, blah. And, you know, the simple answer is you didn't pay your power bill. That's why, for 3 months. That's why you got this notice, right? But one of the biggest things we would do is we just shuffle them over to the welfare, because inside all of your power bills, did you know that like 20 or 30% of your power bill is actually subsidizing people who don't pay for their power? Look it up. Look it up. There's a lot of assistance programs, and it's not funded by just the government. Most of it's funded by other utility paying customers. And yeah, that's exactly what happens, friends. So why is your power bill so much? Well, you might want to ask yourself, who's not paying their power bills? That's right. But of the people paying their power bills are being told, please don't do this because there's too many people on the power grid, too many people who aren't paying probably. This is only the second 90-degree day we've had so far this year. Last year we had 60-plus days over 100 degrees. We are in trouble if this is how it's starting out here in May. I am inclined to agree with you. Jan in Allentown says, Steve, I'd like to ask you about the proposal of Fanny Mae and Freddie Mack to be allowed to begin purchasing second mortgages. So basically buying home equity loans. I think these two agencies are looking at purchasing these mortgages from the banks and then repackaging them as notes or bonds to sell to investors. If that's the case, then wouldn't that mean that the government is using this as a backdoor way of pumping massive amounts of money into the economy, causing further inflation? And if these mortgages go into default, who is out of the money? Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac? Or is the taxpayer on the hook for another bailout debt forgiveness? Please help us understand this. I'm so confused. But I have a very uneasy feeling that with the delinquencies at such high levels that nothing good can come from this. All right, so Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they are subsidized by the federal government. You can't get around saying that. Now, they're not supposed to be. They're supposed to be independent. They're supposed to be kind of standing on their own. But that's not what we've seen. They keep getting bailouts, and they get special privileges with the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is technically not the government, but they all interbreed. It's really sickening, actually. But basically, these guys are pumping out these mortgages, and they're buying up mortgage loans out there. Now, home equity loans are not that risky unless you have a major drop in real estate prices. We're not seeing that right now. Real estate prices are staying up pretty good. So that is not the biggest problem that we're seeing out there right now. But is this the federal government pumping lots of money into the market? Well, it's not the federal government, but it is the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is not just doing it through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, but doing it through all the banks, really. The Federal Reserve is continuing to pump more money into the market, that's for sure. And that is going to continue to cause inflation because people are getting access to money that they really shouldn't be getting access to. So hopefully that's kind of a short answer to that. So on to our celebrity guests. Amy and Frugal Daddy at Freakin' Frugal have an update for us. A huge price increase in canning jars as well. When I started canning 2 years ago, you could get a case of 12 at Walmart for $11.99. Who remembers those days? We all do, right? It now costs over $17, and the prices online and in the grocery store chains like ShopRite are worse, making it very challenging to preserve my own food, discouraging to say the least. Now, if you're okay with it, and some of you guys are just going to be like, I don't want to watch that, and some of you guys are like, I definitely don't want to do that. But they have a dumpster diving YouTube channel. So they go back behind stores and peruse what's there, and they pull out good stuff. They'll show you how to do it. So if you want to learn how to dumpster dive, or if you're just interested and just kind of want to see it, they have a great channel over there. A lot of you guys have seen them, and you probably recognize them. It's not for everyone, but I enjoy it, and it's a good channel. And if you ever get into desperate straits, or perhaps you are in desperate straits and you really need to save a lot of money, that may be a way, if it's legal in your area. If it's not legal in your area, then you need to make decisions. All right. Standing on Faith says Walmart in Florida Panhandle. Creams, beef, bread, corn on the cob. Strawberries are all very low. Milk went up 30 more cents. Cereal is priced way too high to even buy. And no large curd cottage cheese. Fruit and vegetables look so much better this week. Once again, that's the Florida Panhandle. Jackie says, Western New York, Walmart Supercenter made a pickup order today and was told milk is low stock and the Great Value White Cake Mix is also in low stock. 217 says, Blue Peak Internet and phone provider had a major outage in Oklahoma and it's been reported to be impacting nationally. So be aware of that out there. Of course, Oklahoma got hammered with some tornadoes, so maybe they lost a processing center or something like that. Mercy Ed says, Steve, supposedly there's a shortage of hot pepper sriracha hot sauce. Now I looked it up, they did halt production until after Memorial Day. So they're shutting down their factory until after Memorial Day because the jalapenos were not red enough. So they're doing quality control. They want to make sure they're producing good quality stuff, and it wasn't up to their standards, so they've shut down the production. They've sent out a letter to their to the companies that they sell to, and that's what's going on. Lee says, isn't it funny that the airports went down speaking of the UK, they had their passport control shut down. Isn't it funny the airports went down the same day we found out about the military defense ministry was hacked? Coincidence or not? What do you think? Please let me know. I live in the UK. It's possible that it could have been the same hackers. They're coming out and they're saying it wasn't a hacking event. It's possible that it was an update that they pushed through and it is just a coincidence. It's possible. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments down below. Tyler says, baby formula shortage. And now I'm going to, before we get into this, first off, I'm going to read my response here. I'm not getting any other reports of baby formula shortage. So please check other stores. But we have a number of warnings out here that are happening through the media as well. So let's read this. Location, Costco in Western Pennsylvania. My wife is expecting in a few months, so we started stocking up on baby formula. Costco has a limit for Kirkland brand formula, 2 per membership per day. However, since we started going, they had a large pallet full of it. Now, every time we go, it keeps shrinking until recently it isn't even a pallet. And now it looks like it only takes up a footprint of 1/4 of a pallet that has another brand on it. My wife can't breastfeed because of medical reasons, so we are somewhat concerned that they will run out. The Lord will provide, so we are not worried. And once again, I'm not seeing other reports out there of formula shortage, so just go to a different store. It may be a little more expensive over there, but Walmart has a whole bunch, and you know, check other stores or wait for Costco to restock. So, but you have a concern out there. You're saying like this could be a problem. We want to make sure we're prepared, and you're stocking up. You're thinking ahead, and you know the Lord will provide, but you're also taking steps to make sure you are prepared. So that's good stuff. Now, Entrepreneur magazine just had an article this week. Basically, the formula shortage problem that we had before, where one factory shut down and suddenly like lots of people couldn't get formula. The Entrepreneur magazine is talking about how we could be having another shortage coming up. And that's because 90% of all formula sold in the United States is made by 2 companies. Okay, 90% made by 2 companies. What happens when they have a factory shut down? Yeah, it can impact a lot out there. And I know some of you are like, don't use baby formula, don't. And you can make your own choices, but be aware that some people don't have a choice, okay? So they have to find ways to make that work. Now, there are different options out there, but everyone is free in the United States to make choices for themselves. So please respect them as they do that. We do want, if you want to get some more information from Genesis Gold Group out there, there's a link right here. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. Thanks so much for watching. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.